In section 1.5, we're just reviewing how to add and subtract. Again, we call these numbers real numbers. Even though every number we work with is real, we still have to call it real numbers. So adding and subtracting real numbers. Today we're just going to find the sums and differences of real numbers, and then the inverse property of addition is going to be applied to subtraction problems. You'll see what we mean when we get there. So when you're adding two numbers, we have two different rules that we're going to follow. If both signs are the same, or if the signs of the two numbers that you're adding are different. So if both signs of the two numbers that you're adding are the same, whether they're both positive or they're both negative, it doesn't matter. You just add the numbers. Once you're done adding the numbers, you keep the sign that you started with. So if both numbers were negative, you add the two numbers and you wind up with a negative result. For example, 5 plus 7 we all know is 12. The number 5 and the number 7 together are 12, and the sign of these two numbers is positive, so your answer is positive 12. You don't have to write plus 12, it's just 12. For our second example, we have a negative 3 plus a negative 8. These both have the same sign, so we're just going to add the two numbers together. 3 and 8 is 11. And then we're going to keep the sign of the numbers. The sign of the numbers is negative, so the answer is negative 11. If the signs are different, so in our examples we have 6 plus negative 9, over here negative 4 plus 2. If the signs are different, you will subtract the two numbers. And then keep the sign of the bigger number. So there's two parts to these problems. You need to see which one is bigger, which number is bigger, and then subtract the smaller number from the bigger number, and then keep the sign of the bigger number. So for example, we have 6 plus negative 9. Well, 9 is bigger than 6 in magnitude, so that means we're going to do 9 minus 6, which is of course 3, and then we're going to keep the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number in this case was negative, so the answer is going to be negative 3. On the second example, we have negative 4 plus 2. The bigger number in magnitude is 4, so we're going to take 2 away from 4. 4 minus 2 is 2, and then we keep the sign of the bigger number. In this case, negative 4 was the bigger number, so we are going to write negative 2. There are a few other ways that you may have been taught to do these subtraction problems, but I think that's the one that makes the most sense to me, so that's the why I'm teaching you this one. If you have some other way of doing subtraction that makes sense to you, then by all means go ahead. But the point is, we have to get the answer right. So as long as you're getting it right, I'm good. So we just have a few more practice problems here. Let's try to apply what's going on. We want to think about what each problem is asking us to do. Look at the signs. If they're the same, just add the numbers and keep the sign. If they're different, figure out which number is bigger, subtract the smaller, keep the sign of the bigger. So here we go. We have negative 12 plus 7. Wow, let me get rid of that. We have negative 12 plus 7. All right, the signs are different, negative and positive. So that means I'm going to take the smaller number, which is 7, and subtract it from the bigger number, or just do 12 minus 7, which is 5. And then I'm going to keep the sign of the bigger number, which in this case is negative, so my answer is negative 5. I'm going to go across to this negative 18 plus negative 2. I see addition in the middle. I have negative 18, negative 2, and I'm adding them together, which means my numbers have the same sign. So I add these two numbers together, I get 20, and I'm going to keep the sign. Here we have negative 4.8 plus 4. Negative 4.8 is bigger than the 4 there, and they have opposite signs, so I'm going to take these two numbers and subtract them. 4.8 is bigger than 4. When I subtract them, I get, hopefully you're thinking 0.8. And then I'm going to keep the sign of the bigger number, which in this case was negative. So the answer is negative 0.8. I'm going to skip the fraction one for a second here and go over to the negative 16 plus negative 8. Here we have the same sign, so we will add them. 16 plus 8 is 24. You should be hopefully doing this in your head. Keep the sign because they are the same sign. They both were negative, so negative 24. On this one, we have opposite signs, negative 11 plus 9. So we will do 11 minus 9 because 11 is the bigger number in magnitude than 9. So 11 minus 9 is 2. And we're going to keep the sign of the bigger number, negative 2. All right, this fraction one over here. I saved that one for last because it's more challenging than the others. We need to add these two fractions together. We can see that this one, the 3/4, is positive, and the 5/6 here is negative. So we have opposite signs, which means we're going to find the bigger fraction and then subtract the smaller fraction from it. But you might not know which one is bigger here and which one is smaller just yet. And even if you did, you'd still have to find a common denominator in order to be able to combine these. So we need a common denominator. Hopefully you're following my rule for a common denominator. I'm looking at the bigger number and I'm saying, does the other denominator go into the bigger denominator nicely? And the answer, of course, is no. So I double the bigger denominator to 12, and then I say, does the smaller denominator go into 12? And the answer is yes. So 12 is my common denominator. To turn 4 into 12, I have to multiply by 3. So to make the fancy one, I have to multiply the numerator by 3 as well. So 3 times 3 is 9, plus, parentheses, my negative sign. 6 times 2 is 12. So to complete the problem, we have 5 times 2, which is 10. All right, now we have 9/12 plus negative 10/12. Which one's bigger in magnitude? Well, the 10/12 is. We have 10/12 here and only 9 of those 12s here. So that means this one is bigger, which means our final answer will be negative. And now we subtract the two top numbers. 10 minus 9 is 1. So negative 1 over 12 is your answer. At this point, you can do only 19 through 29 odd on the homework. So go ahead and take 5 minutes or so and try to get some of those problems done. The other half of this section is remembering how to do subtraction problems. It turns out that subtraction is really just addition of negative numbers. So every subtraction problem then can be turned into an addition problem with a negative number. When you do that, you're subtracting by adding the opposite. You can think of subtraction as just adding the opposite. And the way that we remember that is by using this little phrase right here, keep, change, change. You'll hear me say that a lot this year. There's another way you may have heard this. I've heard teachers call it ping pong. They both mean the same thing. Basically what's going to happen is you're going to turn the subtraction in this 10 minus 8 problem, which we already know is 2. You're going to turn the subtraction into addition. So you're going to keep the sign of the first number, stays positive, change the subtraction into addition, so that's their first change, and then change the sign of the second number. That is keep, and then change, and then change. So keep, change, change. Or you could call it ping. Ping would be turning the minus into a plus, and then pong would be turning the next number into a negative. Keep, change, change, or ping pong. Now we have a problem that's just like what we were just doing. A positive 10 plus a negative 8. What do? We subtract the two numbers, the smaller from the bigger. So 10 minus 8 is 2, and we keep the sign of the bigger number, which was positive. We already knew the answer there was positive 2, but down the road we're going to wind up with more difficult problems. So this skill right here is actually very useful to know. Now we have 8 minus 12. So let's do keep, change, change. We'll keep the sign of the front number 8. We'll change the minus to a plus, and then change the sign of the last number to negative 12. And now we have 8 plus negative 12. So we're adding two numbers that have different signs, which means we take the bigger number, the 12, minus the smaller number, the 8, which we know 12 minus 8 is 4. And then we're going to keep the sign of the bigger number, which is negative, so we have negative 4. Again, with the 23 minus 10, we know that one already. We know it's 13. But let's do keep, change anyway. We have positive 23, so we're going to keep that and then change that minus to a plus and then make that a negative 10. Now we have two numbers that have opposite signs, so we are going to take the bigger number minus the smaller number, which is 13, and then keep the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number here was the 23, which was positive, so we wind up with a positive 13 as an answer. On the next one, negative 5 minus 11, we're going to keep the sign of the first number. Even though it's negative, we're keeping the sign of that number no matter what. And then we're going to change the minus sign in between to a plus and change the sign of the next number to negative 11. Now we have negative 5 plus negative 11. So that means we have two numbers being added that have the same sign. How do we do that? Well, we just add the two numbers together. 5 plus 11 is 16, and then we keep the sign that we have. So negative and negative, our answer is negative 16. Please make sure that you are not forgetting that negative sign right there. It is so important in this class. Way too many people lose points and get a lower grade for this class just because of leaving off negative signs. Okay, the middle one here, kind of in the grid, the middle one, 18 minus 23. Hopefully you use keep, change. So this stays positive, this turns positive, this turns negative. And now we can clearly see that we need to take 23 minus 18 and then keep the sign of the 23. So 23 minus 18 is probably right around 5. And then it was a negative 23. That's bigger than the positive 18, so negative 5 is the answer. Negative 12 minus 14. Keep, change. Now we can see that these both have the same sign, the negative 12 plus the negative 14. Same sign means just add the two numbers. So that would be 26. Keep the sign that you had. So negative 26 is the answer. Okay, a little bit different looking problem here. 8 minus negative 3. We're going to keep, change again here. Notice that it is a subtraction problem because of this. This is a negative number. That's what the parentheses there are trying to show. Minus and then a negative number. So we're going to keep, change the minus sign to a plus, and then change the sign of the second number. Well, the second number was negative, so it turns positive. And now we have 8 plus a positive 3. Well, we know that 8 plus a positive 3 is 11. They have the same sign, so we add the two numbers together and we keep the sign of the two numbers. So positive 11 is the answer. This problem right here is the nasty problem, the one with all negative signs on it. This is probably the most difficult one, but if you follow keep, change, then you will probably not get it wrong. We're going to keep the sign of the first number, recognize that this means subtraction right here, and this means you have a negative number. So keep, change. And now we have negative 6 plus 10. So those are opposite signs, which means we are going to take the bigger number and subtract the smaller number. 10 is the bigger number, so 10 minus 6 is 4. And then we're going to keep the sign of the bigger number, which is 10. So our answer is positive 4. If you follow keep, change, every time, it won't mess you up. A problem like that won't be that bad. Okay, here we have 3 plus negative 2. We've been doing keep, change all along, but if you notice at the very bottom here, we only use keep, change for subtraction problems. This problem is actually an addition problem. It's 3 plus a negative number. So here we have addition again. We have a positive number and a negative number. That means we have opposite signs. We find the bigger number and subtract from it the smaller number. 3 is the bigger number here. 3 minus 2 is 1. and then we're going to keep the sign of the bigger number, which in this case was positive, so our answer is positive 1. Only use keep, change for subtraction problems. Otherwise, use your rules for addition. Please keep that in mind. You might want to put a few thousand circles around this statement right here. All right, we have 2 more problems and then the section's over. They're story type problems. Really, they just kind of tell a tale about somebody who's doing something. It says a reef explorer dives 25 feet, okay, so that's probably important, to photograph brain coral, and then rises 16 feet, so rises 16 feet, that's probably important, to travel over a ridge before diving 47 feet again to survey the base of the reef. All right. Then the diver rises 29 feet to see an underwater cavern. What is the location of the cavern in relation to the surface of the water? So what we need to do is realize that diving is telling us something important and rising is telling us something important. What do you think that probably is? Hopefully you're thinking diving means a negative number and rising means a positive number. So if we start off at the surface, where would we be number-wise? Well, we'd probably be at 0. Now if we go from 0, the surface, to diving 25 feet, we're going to subtract 25 feet from 0. And then we're going to rise 16 feet. So wherever we are right here, we're going to go up another 16 feet. Then we dive another 47 feet, so that's going to be minus 47. Then the diver rises 29 feet to see an underwater cavern, plus 29. Where are we at? Well, we just follow GEMS. GEMS says subtraction and addition at the same time from left to right. All we have is subtraction and addition, so we're just going to work our way from left to right. We have 0 minus 25, which is negative 25. So we have negative 25 plus 16 minus 47 plus 29. Negative 25 plus 16 now. We're just working our way over from left to right. These have opposite signs. The bigger number is the 25, so we're going to subtract these two numbers. 25 minus 16 is 9. Keep the sign of the bigger number, which in this case was negative. So negative 9 minus 47 plus 29. All right, now we're going to add or subtract these two numbers here. We have a subtraction problem, so I'm going to ping pong or keep, change. This sign stays negative. This one turns positive, and then that becomes negative 47. Now we have two numbers that have the exact same sign. 9 plus 47 is 56. And we're going to keep the sign of these two numbers, which is negative. So now we have negative 56 plus 29. And one more move that we have to do, we can see that we are adding two numbers that have opposite signs, which means that we are actually going to subtract these two numbers. So we need to do 56 minus 29. Hopefully you're thinking 27 if you do it in your head. If you don't, you grab a calculator, it's fine. We have opposite signs here, so we're going to keep the sign of the bigger number, which in this case was negative. So the answer is negative 27. Well, this is a story problem, so we better include the units here. So negative 27 feet is the answer. The problem asks, what is the location of the cavern in relation to the surface of the water? We have negative 27 feet. That means 27 feet below the surface. By the way, if you did a problem, and we can put a circle around that, or a box, if you did a problem like this and you wound up with like 15, a positive 15, or some other positive number, would that make sense? No, it would not, because we're underwater. You can't be above the water if you're swimming below the water. Doesn't make sense. You'd be like flying then. No good. All right, I want you to try this problem. Read through it. Underline the important information. Set up the problem just like I just did with the Reef Explorer, and find out the elevation of Fort Collins, Colorado. Greybull, Thermopolis, Casper, Fort Collins. Some of us probably have made that drive before. We're starting out in Greybull at 3,800 feet. We're going to rise about 500 feet to get to Thermopolis. We're going to go up another 900 feet to get to Casper. And then between Casper and Fort Collins, we drop 200 feet. Dropping there would be subtracting. So our problem is going to look like this. 3,800 from Graybull. And then we're rising 500 to Thermopolis. We're rising 900 to Casper. And then we're dropping 200 to Fort Collins. So 3,800 plus 500, 4,300 plus 900 minus 200. 4,300 plus 900 is 5,200 minus 200, which we can quickly see is 5,000 feet in Fort Collins. Almost 1 mile up. So there's your answer. All right, that's it for the section. Enjoy.